Hello everyone, welcome back. This is another pick a card reading. This is going to be a 10 card reading. It's going to be a general life kind of balanced spread with like a little bit in everything. So as always, just pick whichever pile you feel drawn to the most. First we have Professor's Research with Professor Juniper and a cross stone. We have the Vitality Band with an Ammonite fossil, and the Pokey Kid with an amethyst. These are timeless readings, which means that it doesn't really matter when you view this video. It could be when it releases, it could be a week or a year from now. The important thing is that you just pick whichever pile you feel drawn to the most. Or if you really wanted to, you could watch all three and then pick whichever one you feel resonates with you the most and take the advice from that instead. I don't really care how you do it. But let's start the readings. Alright, pile number 1, we have this cross stone. I don't remember what the official name for it is. People usually just call it cross stone. And again, we have Professor's Research with Professor Juniper. So this is your reading. So the first card is about the past, and it feels like there's been a lot going on in your life. This feels like a very over the course of your whole life kind of card. Obviously the Absol is associated with calamities, but the thing about the Absol is it doesn't cause natural disasters. It just warns you that they're coming. But people would blame it anyway, because they did not understand that correlation is not causation. So you could feel like the scapegoat in a lot of situations where people may have been blaming you for stuff that you didn't really do, and this might be a cause of a lot of your problems. But let's continue. So the Sidra is, this is a lot of like pushback, and card number 2 is stuff that you need to let go of. And this is saying that if you want to progress, while it is like true that a bunch of bad things have happened to you, if you want to progress, you need to let loose of like the guarded attitude you might have, or the expectation that people are going to automatically act like this towards you all the time. Especially because sometimes that can end up being a self-fulfilling prophecy. But things you should focus on in the present is card number 3. And we have Dartrix. Now, Dartrix is in a very awkward stage, middle stage. But you see in this picture, he's surrounded by other Dartrix like him. So you might be in a very like awkward transitional phase right now, but you need to focus on the fact that you have found your people, or if you haven't found your people yet, you will soon. This might also be that if that doesn't resonate with you, it might be that you need to find your people, and that's what you need to focus on right now. Because there might be tons of people who have treated you poorly, but that just means you need to find your people. But, card number 4 is your potential. Now, Duskull is a pretty unique card to get in this situation. You know, ghost types, or rather psychic type. It's a very strange type, a very mental type. You know, ghosts are known for playing mind games with people, but in terms of potential, this could be that you are smarter than you give yourself credit for. Especially if you're the type of person to play strategy games or other things like that. This Duskull card also has an attack that allows it to bring more Duskull. And I think this is trying to reiterate this part here where, like, you will find your people, and these will be really good friends that will, like, come and clutch for you. There will be, like, found family. So, despite this sort of gloomy look to it, it does have an overall positive connotation. And to be honest, the aesthetic just feels more like you're going to have to accept the fact that you're a bit of an oddball rather than anything negative about this. But for obstacles, card number 5, we have Colress's Tenacity. Now, this Colress is a guy who's, like, very set in his ways, and, you know, near the end of the game he does lighten up a bit, but, or rather the end of, like, Black and White 2, I think it was. But he is very methodical. He's very, he tries to stay logical to the point where it hurts him and others around him. And that might be something that you need to work on a bit. Especially with this also pointing to, like, mental faculties, because it can be really easy to get caught up in your own head to the point where you're ignoring, like, the truth of what's around you. This could also be that part of the reason why you can't actually make it to this stage is you're really hung up on something. Especially if it's something like I said, it makes sense if other people have treated you poorly and years of people have treated you poorly, then you're going to have all this data that suggests that people are always going to treat you poorly, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's right. That seems to be what this card is pointing to, but let's continue. So for card number 6, that's, like, career guidance. Decidui. This is, like, the card of locking in. This is the card of being very specific and work smarter, not harder, I guess you could say. Because, like, you know, he's got to aim that, it's not an arrow, it's like a feather, but, you know, it's a feather arrow. And this is also a Pokemon that is, again, a ghost type, along with being a grass type. So again, that could point to that, like, those mental calculations and stuff. And, like, ultimately, this is about using your intellect in the right places. But this does imply that you would be best at a career that's very focused and to the point instead of, like, spread out. Like, one of those jobs where you basically only do one thing, but you do it very well. Or perhaps this could indicate that you need to be in a sort of director position and making sure everyone is moving into, like, the right spot and working efficiently and managing resources is the term that pops up in my head right now. So keep that in mind. If you're already in that kind of position, then that just means you're right where you need to be. The other thing is, if you're like, I don't know, I love my job, then that could just be an indication that you should stay there because you could be right on the money. But it is good to keep your options open as a backup, which is why this might be worth keeping in mind. So for love guidance, we have Binding Mochi. Oh. So you really need to stay clear of toxic relationships. It might be that, like, you're so used to people putting you down that you'll put up with anything. Do not put up with anything. If someone is, like, sticking to you too much and they are just wearing down on your mental health, your physical health, or whatever, if it feels like they have some kind of hold over you, I know a lot of people who have been in like financially abusive relationships and they didn't really realize it until they tried to get out and then realized that they couldn't get out. Just do not put up with that. Just make sure that your relationships are healthy. Make sure that you're communicating. Make sure this person is not trying to trap you. All right? Because you don't deserve that. You don't have to put up with that. You don't have to live with that. Okay? That is the most important thing. If you feel like you're already in a healthy relationship, then good. That's good. This is just saying that due to your past, you may have a tendency to gravitate towards people who are not very healthy for you. So stay away from them. I know it's really tempting because like nobody wants to be alone, but yeah. So card number 8 is your home and your family life. Kaparaha. This is an interesting card because it implies solid family foundations while also being kind of standoffish. If you feel like you have a relatively successful family, but they kind of look down on you, that might be what this card is referring to. Or if they expect better from you, otherwise they're not super lovey-dovey, they're not... Yeah, that would really make sense with all this other stuff. Possibly really strict family life. This is kind of saying that that's probably not going to change. I mean, like, I'm not saying that like people are incapable of change. But some people really don't change because they don't see anything wrong with themselves, right? Like, I get the sense of the feeling like there's a lot of people in your family and like they might have problematic behaviors. They might not be very loving or very nurturing, but like they don't see anything wrong with it. And this is you have to make peace with that at some point. Like, you can change some things about some people, but not everything. You can't always change someone's mind. Especially like, an elephant never forgets kind of thing. Yeah. But card number 9 is spiritual guidance. And if you're not a very spiritual person, you could take this as like other mental guidance for your own like mental health. But Zoroark, things are not as they seem right now. And, Zoroark does illusions because it wants to seem more threatening than it actually is, right? So, things look worse than they actually are. Things look a lot scarier than they actually are, is what this is telling me. And if you are a spiritual person, this might be a sign to get into certain forces that you may have been a little afraid to. I know some people get like scared of tarot cards because they're like worried that it's gonna do something. I don't know if they do it wrong. I don't know. You hear a lot of crazy stuff about spiritual things, or like people who are afraid to contact their spirit guides because they don't want to accidentally open a portal to hell. I don't know. Or even like it could be something as simple as being drawn to work with darker entities that people generally don't like, such as demons, and like you might feel called to do so, but you might be scared about it. I'm pretty neutral on any kind of spiritual entity. I believe every single spiritual entity, including gods, demons, fairies, whatever, can be both good or bad, depending on the situation. They all have their favorites. They are flawed beings just like us. If they were not flawed beings, then they would not exist in the way that they did. So this might be a sign to tap into those darker forces if you feel drawn to it. If you don't feel drawn to it, like at all, then don't bother. I don't think people gain anything from particularly forcing themselves to do stuff. But I know some people who want to dip their waters into spiritual things get afraid to, even though they really want to. You kind of have to deal with it for yourself, whether or not you like it. But in terms of like a mental aspect, This could be about, I don't want to say not being afraid to be a little shady, but if you need to hide to protect yourself, you might have to. And you might be afraid to, but like, with this history coming on here, sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. You might need to hide or tell some white lies in order to protect yourself. But, as I said earlier, this does imply that things are not as bad as they look right now. So do keep that in mind. Now, for the future, we have Blood Moon Ursaluna. Blood Moon Ursaluna is a battle-hardened Pokemon. And what this says is that all of your past stuff is going to make you stronger. I know a lot of people do hate that cliche of what doesn't kill you make you stronger. Because, like, sometimes it isn't true, right? Sometimes it just leaves you traumatized and broken, and you have a horrible life afterwards. Sometimes it does not make you stronger, but this will. It might not be, like, every single thing, but, like, some aspect of it will make you stronger and will allow you to make a comeback. Especially because, like I said, you will find your people, and you will find people who you can grow with. You will find people that you can be comfortable with. Yeah, so basic lightning energy as your bonus card. Especially this hollow foil, this is really telling me you have to make a move. See, the thing about choices is if you don't make any choices at all, you're going to lose all your potential choices, right? Sometimes you do have to just take that leap of faith, and, like, sometimes when you do that, it'll be like, oh, but what if I fail? But it's like, oh, but if you don't try at all, then you're gonna fail anyway because you didn't try at all, so why not? Especially with these mental cards, like all these dark and psychic types, it feels like you need to take some calculated risks, perhaps. Anyway, that is all for pile number 1. I hope this helped. Hello, pile number 2. If you picked this Ammonite fossil and this Vitality Band, this is going to be your reading for today. So card number 1 has to deal with your past. We have the Houndoom. This is a card of solitary work. Regardless of whether or not you are actually alone, this is a card of feeling like you're alone, feeling like you have to be a trailblazer, feeling like you have to do everything yourself around here. And card number 2 is what you need to let go relating to this. And there's a lot of hidden desire for stuff to be, maybe not hidden, but there's a lot of desire here for things to be simpler, for things to go back to the way they were, possibly before all of this hard work. And you have to accept that you can't really change the past. You can't go back to the past either. You can only really move forward, and you can make forward good, but you cannot make it the exact same as how it used to be. So, card number 3 is our present. So, Joltik. This is... You're in a very good position, even if you don't necessarily feel like it, even if the world seems like a very big and daunting place. You are in a good position, at least compared to a lot of other people right now. And that's the part that you should focus on, is what advantages you have in your current situations compared to what you don't. Because there are some things that you cannot fundamentally change. Like, for example, Joltik is, well, in the TCG it's a grass type. In the games it's a bug, electric type. It's always going to be, like, weak to rock or fire. It's not going to be able to change the fact that it's weak to rock or fire, except for, like, certain circumstances, like using some kind of Terra ability, or using terrestrialization. But those weaknesses are inherent to Joltik, But if it didn't have those, then it wouldn't be a Joltik, right? Joltik has some strengths. Electric is a good attacking type, but yeah, like I said, you should focus on the things that you can do and things that you are good at that are inherent to you and your situation, as opposed to the things that you cannot change. So for number 4, we have potential. We have this Persian. Now, Persian is a Pokemon that is often associated with luxury, and it's also seen as a very cunning Pokemon. I mean, it almost gives kind of mastermind kind of vibes, right? So, but like it is like the main Pokemon of Giovanni, and he's like the big boss, right? So what this is telling me is that your potential is to be that big boss, like how you've been forced to be. But the thing is, the different thing here between the Persian and the Houndoom is these are both like leader cards, but this past says you're being a leader because you have to, and you're being put in a hard position. This is being a leader because you want to. Like, you are rising from the ashes. You are rising from the rubble. And looking down on other... Not, like, looking down on other people in, like, a bad way, but, like, looking down on the people who, like, probably didn't think you could do it, or, like, made fun of you while you were still in this baby stage. So, let's move on to obstacles. Obstacles. We have Iron Moth. And, you know, I think this does have to deal with... releasing the past. That is your main obstacle here, is how the past affects you. I mean, Iron Moth repulses the past, right? In a way. But, you know, Iron Moth is also known as being, like, this kind of ominous figure, like, gazing and staring at people. And, like, people don't really know what it is. And this would also refer to, like, how many eyes you feel like are on you right now, expecting you to do all these sorts of things, whether or not you'll live up to the pressure. People who are, like, measuring your every move, trying to calculate what you'll do next. You might even feel like people are trying to take something from you. But card number 6 is some guidance in your career. Now, this is a bit interesting to get here. The secret art. Like this like ninja, right? Now, the thing about this card is you can attach energy to your active Pokemon, but it's better to attach energy to your basic Pokemon so you don't get poisoned. And this would indicate that, career-wise, now might be the time to try and gain an upper hand through secrecy, especially if you have competitors. If you have competitors, you don't want them to know your every move necessarily, right? You don't necessarily want to boast right out there. Like, for example, if I was playing this in the TCG, I would probably be stacking my benched Pokemon and prepping them for if something happens to my active Pokemon, because if I put it on my active Pokemon, that increases the chances that they're just going to knock out my active Pokemon and waste that energy from me, right? So this is like saying that you should also have a backup plan when it comes to your career. You might be in a precarious situation right now, or you might be later down the line. You need to have a backup plan or something like that. So, card number 7. This is for love. Now, I need to do before I forget, I would like to do a reminder that I understand not everyone necessarily wants or needs a relationship. So when I do like love readings, the default will be a relationship, but you could apply this to other types of relationships, not romantic. For example, if you are someone who would prefer a queer platonic partner, or if you were someone who would just love a best friend and that's like all you need, then you can apply that to that relationship. But anyway, card number 7 is supposed to be for like love guidance. And we have 0-6 machinations. Your opponent discards cards from their hand until they have 3 cards in their hand. So the guidance is like, I understand what this is. Hang on, I'm trying to word this. You have to lay out everything for someone on the table and make sure they're being super upfront about you, right? Like, you don't want to be dating someone who has a bunch of cards up their sleeves. You want someone who's going to be more direct, right? Especially with, like, these other cards, you might already be feeling like you're playing a bunch of mind games already with people. You want someone who's not going to be playing those mind games with you. And, like, obviously this is a card about disarming your opponent, but in terms of, like, love, this would mean someone who does not really need to be disarmed. Or like you're letting them know up front, I have boundaries, right? So that's what this is doing. That's what this is saying, is definitely focus on someone who, I don't know, trust is like a very big thing here. But like, just focus on someone who does not feel like shady, I guess. I hope you guys understand what I mean by this. But, yeah, so home and family life, we have the Houndour. Oh, okay. Yeah, so the Houndoom, it's not like you grew up like that for no reason, right? People forced you to be like that. And this really does give off, like, you know, it's not your fault. If you might not like the person you have become, but it's not your fault. It was gonna happen like this. And yeah, the key to moving on here is to pay attention to where these thoughts come from, where these ambitions come from, whether or not they are actually your own ambitions, or if they are something that has just been drilled into your head since you were young by other people. That's the card that we have to look out for. Or, I mean, that's the lesson that we have to look out for home, family. So, spiritual guidance. We have Absol. Now, Absol is a Pokemon that tells you when bad stuff is going to happen, but the Absol does not cause the bad things to happen, right? And, okay, so if you're not a spiritual person, you could also take this as just, like, general mental guidance, like mental health stuff. And this is saying that, like, you shouldn't be paranoid, obviously, but you should not be afraid to leave a situation if you sense that something is very wrong. Sometimes you just know in your heart that something is very wrong, and you might not be able to articulate why, but you know that it doesn't feel good. You know that it keeps weighing on your mind, or and you know you don't belong here, or whatever. Sometimes it's okay to just leave before calamity strikes. If you are a spiritual person, this could involve looking to spirit guides for guidance on warnings and how to avoid disasters. But if you are not a spiritual person, this could just be relatively mundane things, such as, again, having a backup plan and learning when to leave situations, especially things like relationships, interpersonal, stuff, when it is bad for you. All right. So 10 is your future. It's a little funny. The first pile also drew this card for their future. So if this reading feels like it's kind of there but not quite there, you might want to look at pile 1, because that might be your reading instead of this one, if because these do give off kind of similar vibes. But anyway, Blood Moon Ursa Luna, battle-hardened warrior type. So this does indicate that, like, it will make you stronger. It might not be the prettiest thing in the world, but you did genuinely have something to learn from it. You do have, like, gains coming out of it, right? And it's the psychic energy. This is basically to... So, like, psychic, very mental type. Try not to get caught up in your own head very much, but at the same time, you should definitely be aware of the things around you. You should definitely do that introspection and think about, like, why you do the things that you do, or, like, why you let certain things happen, or not let certain things happen. That kind of thing. So, yeah, like I said, this has like a very like survivalist kind of like vibe to it. So yeah, just hang in there and just know that you are your own master. It's your like, you know, the whole like my body, my choice kind of thing, but like with everything, it's your life, it's your choice to let people in, keep people out, and like you know, all that kind of stuff. So, all right, that was your reading, pile number 2. I hope you have a good day. All right, pile number 3. If you picked this amethyst cluster along with this Pokey Kid card, this is going to be your reading for today. So card number 1 is going to be your past, that is going to the part of your past that is relevant to today's reading. And we have Furfuru. This feels like a card about expectations, like you were being primed for success. I get the feeling you might be one of those kids where like your parents had very big expectations for you. They wanted you to go off to like the fanciest college. They probably, you know, they wanted you to take a bunch of like AP classes if you had those available, stuff like that. Or like maybe they wanted you to be in a bunch of clubs or something. They were trying to prime you for success in the way that they thought was best for you. Considering that's going to be a major theme of this reading, it's going to be a little interesting. Things to let go of. Toxicroak. Woof. Considering that we just had this card about like being primed for success, Toxicroak is a huge fighter, right? Very go-getter. You might be burnt out by how much people want you to do, and like that's really the feeling I'm getting here. Because like sometimes this is overkill. Like clean hit, do extra damage to an evolution Pokemon. But considering this is a card you need to let go of, or the Toxicroak, considering the Toxicroak represents something you need to let go of, I think this is about the idea that in order to live your best life, you have to give it 100%, because that's not true. Not even machines run at 100% all the time. They still need downtime. It's really dangerous for anything to run at 100% all the time, no matter what people want to tell you. Number 3 is the Horsey. And card number 3 represents the present. And this is an interesting card to get right after those two, because it implies that you are in a very kind of a young, like look at how curious this Horsey is. If you're like a young adult, you might feel like you have just been kind of like thrust upon the adult world and you're kind of like still learning how to do things. If you are already an adult, this could be about like new beginnings. You might feel like you're in your element, but like in the sense of like you know that this is where you're supposed to be, but you're still really getting used to it. So let's move on to card number 4. This is your potential. And we have Fracture. Fracture is, a very scrappy Pokemon. This does say that, like, if you really do want to be a fighter, you can continue to be a fighter, but notice how this is Fracture and not Haxorus. You don't need to go 100% to get what you want, at least not all the time. You can dial it down a bit. And this dragon type energy, this is a very strong energy type. It doesn't have any weakness, but it also doesn't get any resistance, right? And this can, the no weakness can make it very good against a lot of cards, but again, no resistance. So it also doesn't do super effective damage to anything. So like I said, you don't have to give it 100%. It's okay to only give it 90% or 80% sometimes. You don't have to give it 100% all the time. There are times where you might have to give it 100% for certain events, but what I'm saying is you don't have to do it all the time. Even if people raise you to believe that you have to do it all the time, you don't have to do it all the time. And, this fighting and metal energy combo, obviously fighting is an active thing, but metal. When I see, the metal card, I focus on the defenses, but I also focus on the fact that metal in Chinese elements is the element of, thinking and being logical. So again, this is a work smarter, not harder kind of thing. I know I say that a lot as, a general phrase, a mantra, whatever, but that's really basically what this means, is having a good balance of hard work ethic, but also knowing where to put that work ethic. And this will prevent you from burning out. This will help prevent you from overclocking it and giving it your 100% or your 120% all the time and then burning yourself out, is knowing where to actually genuinely place that effort. Now, for number 5, we have potential obstacles, Slitherwing. Now, this is a reluctance to change ways. It is a reluctance to accept the future. Perhaps even being hostile to the future. And this does not necessarily apply to you specifically. It could be that the reason why you're not really progressing is the people in your life are very set in their ways. And especially the people who raised you to believe that you had to give it 100% all the time, and they cannot accept anything else because they have not lived anything else. They cannot get with the times, so they cannot accept this new reality, and that is going to be a huge obstacle for you, or these kinds of people who cannot accept their new reality. For example, we've all heard of telltale things of very old people who just kind of got a really good job just walking in the door, and they're like, oh yeah, getting a job is easy. And nowadays you can make 50 different job applications and not get a single one back because a lot of job listings are fake. But they don't understand, because they've had their same job for the last 50 years, and they don't really get it because they haven't had to search for a job for a really long time. That's just an example, but you probably know what I mean by that. Now that I said that, some advice that they give you is just not applicable anymore. For example, when I was young, my mom always wanted me to play golf because she was like, oh, when you get older, your boss is going to want to play golf with you. But nobody does that anymore. It was just kind of useless. And now I hate golf. So that didn't really do anything except make me hate golf. But yeah, I'm just giving examples, but now that I've said that, you probably understand what I mean by this. So, career guidance 06. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I assume I am. Machinations. Your opponent discards card from their hand until they have 3 cards. And this would imply that... See, this would imply that you are intelligent, perhaps more than you give yourself credit for, but you have to look for those opportunities, and there may be some competition in a field that you are, like, looking at. This feels like they're waiting for you to slip up, but, like, don't play your whole hand to competitors. But you also have to play the same game everyone else is doing. If this is about getting hired somewhere, everyone embellishes their applications a little. And this might just be that you have to learn how to do that too. But if this is like a workplace and someone is waiting for you to slip up, do not give them the opportunity. Do not give them... you know what this is about? Okay, so like a lot of people will blab way too much about their personal life to their coworkers, and then later their coworkers would like use that against them if they were like jealous or something. This is what that feels like. Is like, do not, you're at the workplace to work, right? And I know some workplaces are like, oh, we're just like a happy little family, but some really are not. And, this isn't saying be mean. You should still be like polite to your fellow coworkers, but like, you don't have to get super personal with them if you don't want to, especially if you don't think you trust them. Okay, so love guidance. I have to specify that this could be romantic love if you are a romantic type of person who loves romantic love, but it could also be just like a really good friendship if you are a romantic and you do not do dates or anything like that. Love guidance, we have Crobat. Now, obviously Crobat looks so angry all the time, but the thing about Crobat is it only evolves with friendship, right? So this does feel like, to be really successful in a relationship, if you are pursuing a romantic relationship, you definitely have to make sure you're friends first. I know there's some people who are like, what do you mean? We're always friends, like right before we date. But like there are some people who will just like, they get really into someone without like really knowing them. This is implying that you should really know someone when you try to date them. And that works way better for you, is if like you really know someone and you don't necessarily just like date someone on a whim. Or if you are like looking to move in with someone, not necessarily dating, like if you're looking to move in with someone like your best friend, you got to make sure you know how they live first. That kind of thing is going to be really important to your life when it comes to very deep relationships. And the thing here is that, yeah, I know this is like angry, like fighting and stuff, but this feels like once you get that kind of relationship, like when you're super close to someone, it will be someone who is willing to fight for you or fight with you on your side with you against the world. And so you don't have to do everything by yourself and you don't have to give it 100% because this person is also giving some of their percent with you. Okay. So home and family life. What you need to know about that, Hypno. Yeah, this is saying you should be wary about just kind of doing whatever everyone else tells you to do. And you don't want to live someone else's dream, you want to live your dreams, not someone else's. Right? This feels like a very obvious guidance card, so let's move on. Spiritual guidance, we have Slitherwing again, but this time the reverse hollow. Now, this is weird to get as an obstacle card, but also as a spiritual guidance card. But since this is in the spiritual guidance category, it feels like there are older people or spirit guides or whatever in your life that do have good advice. It's just, you have to look out for the ones who are willing to get with the times, right? And as always, if you are not a spiritual person, this could just be like mental guidance too, which is why I specify it might be an older person who you're getting advice from, but it might not be advice about careers or anything. It might be advice about interpersonal relationships. It might be advice about growing a spine and setting your boundaries, right? Because ultimately, that's what these ancient Pokemon are good at, is like defending their territory, you know? This could be a person, this could also be spiritual guides. If it is spirit guides, this feels like an ancient primordial force. This also feels very land-based. If you are like a pagan person and like you're not, and like, or if you are like some form of like, what are they called? People who worship more than one entity. If you like worship local land deities or something, or if you have house spirits that help you, or things like that, very, very nature focused, very ancient forces. None of that like abstract love and life higher, thing. This is very grounded, very like, I often find that those sorts of grounded entities know best about humans compared to some of the other guys who are all the way up there. And that may be saying where to get your spiritual guidance from right now. But let's continue. Future, Tapu Bulu. Again, tapping into that energy of like nature spirits and stuff. Of course, if you're not a spiritual person, this could just be getting more in tune with your own nature and literal nature, going out on walks and stuff. But for the future, this is such a strong card. And the thing about Tapu Bulu is it is described as being a lazy Pokemon, despite the fact that it does grow things all the time. So, considering the other cards kind of imply that you need to take a bit of a break, this would imply that your ideal self is someone who knows when to rest up and who can still make a good use of their power when they need to. Because, like, Tapu Bulu does come out to defend stuff. Right? So, yeah, this is implying that you can have a good work, life, rest, whatever balance if you do put your mind to it and you figure out where to allocate your time and energy. That might be what this ancient wisdom type stuff is about. But as for your extra card, the energy, this is dark energy. This is, you're going to want, I don't want to say give in to the dark side because it's not, but there might be certain things such as laziness that you might have thought of as being like sinful or indulgent. And this is saying that it's okay to have nice things every once in a while. This is saying it's okay to be a little indulgent as a reward. Obviously, like, you still do have to do work and stuff, but like I said, you don't have to give it 100%. It's okay. It's okay to have a little cheat day. It's okay to have a little, we are not on this earth to just work and die. But, yeah. Pile number 3. Chill out. And that is your reading for today. Hope that resonated with you. If not, you're free to take a look at any of my other readings. You might just not have picked the right one today. Or, like I said, you could look through this video and then pick whichever one you like after listening to them all. I don't care. But anyway, thank you for watching. And goodbye.